hear from Dr. Andrea Bartoli, who is the president of the SANT'EGIDIO Foundation for Peace and Dialogue and a member of the SANT'EGIDIO community since 1970. He's currently a senior research scholar at Columbia and a member of the Board of Trustees at SOKA University of America. He has served as dean at both Seton Hall University and George Mason University. Andrea is an anthropologist with a scholarly interest in genocide. He has participated in numerous peace efforts around the globe, including most recently in the Central African Republic and in South Sudan. Andrea, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ivana. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a great honor to follow Jeff. We shared the podium a few times at the Prayer for Peace, this moment that the community of SANT'EGIDIO does around the world after the moment that John Paul II started in Assisi, where all religious leaders came together. And this is an extraordinary moment for the Catholic Church, because I'm delighted to hear Professor SACHS reminding us all the recent popes and what they are saying about peace and development and so on, but I'm pretty sure that everybody remembered that when Francis the Saint was going there, I would say the majority of the Christians, the majority of the Catholics were actually on the other side. They were doing the Crusades. So the conversation was internal to the religion, right? And I think that this problem is still there. I don't think that we are speaking enough of the divisions within the religions. India doesn't bomb Pakistan just because. I think it's very important for us to realize that there is a conversation, there is a dialogue that is within the religions. I don't think that anybody is expecting the Vatican anytime to proclaim a new crusade, and that's a good sign. Nor I think that I have here a friend that knows many Protestant, and I don't think that anybody will expect Protestant and Catholic to kill each other, but they did it for quite some time. And if we look into Islam, into Judaism, into Hinduism, in a strange way, even Buddhism, it's interesting how in Japan, Buddhists were able to kill other Buddhists. And so my point here is that the first responsibility of religious communities is to dialogue internally and to make sure that the religions as a whole are able to talk to others. The second point is about knowledge. What is truly unifying for religious tradition, for all spiritual tradition, for all human tradition, is the search of the truth. And we need to realize that that is a responsibility that cannot be owned by mind. And I'm saying this as a Catholic that struggled with truth in many different ways, right? Including the infallibility and all that. But the point here is that I really like Pascal's image of human knowledge as a sphere. And the more the sphere grows, the more the point of connection to the unknown grows. And we need to accept that the more we are growing in this knowledge, the more we need to realize how fragile that knowledge is and how we need to be careful about saying that what we know is sure, is certain. Think about how many retractions in scientific journals. How many times we need to accept that actually we made a mistake, not because we wanted to make a mistake, but because we couldn't do better. So why should we expect that we build 2,000, actually 130,000 they say, nuclear weapons, and we should just best be okay? How can reasonable that can be? The title that was given to me is Nuclear Weapons and Genocide, Opportunities for Community Engagement and Citizen Diplomacy. And my response to that is that I welcome that title as a gift. Because I think that religious tradition and spiritual community should say no to nuclear weapons, as it was reminded for us. The Catholic Church is very clear. But also no to genocide, because religious communities, as I said before, and human communities participated in genocide before it was named. The name is recent. The name is a gift of the crazy Nazi perfection of genocide. But humans have done genocide way before, and now continue to do genocide even in a silent way, in this destruction of the environment that is causing death and suffering. And look what? Nuclear weapons, their productions, their stocking, their storaging is actually contributing to that silent genocide. So the no needs to be no to genocide, no to nuclear weapons, and the yes needs to be to knowledge, to searching and understanding. And as a scholar, Dr. Hughes was mentioning before my interest in genocide prevention and more recently on nuclear disarmament, I focus on actual cases of nuclear disarmament. And I've been fascinated by Megaton to Megawatts, this program where Russians and Americans destroyed the equivalent of 20,000 uranium-based bombs to create American electricity, 10% of the American electricity for 20 years. An enormous amount of wealth, an enormous result on the environment side, very positive because the energy was carbon-free. Nobody knows, very few knows about it. We are certainly not learning enough about it. But if we look at the plutonium side, then I actually need to thank a person that Professor Hughes knows very well, that is Emlyn Hughes, a physicist at Columbia University, that pointed out the importance on the other side of the equation, that is plutonium. We didn't resolve technically the problem of plutonium the same way, not well enough, not in a way that is economically convincing, not in a way that is environmentally convincing, not in a way that will avoid the problem of proliferation, because we are continuing to produce plutonium in all nuclear reactors around the world, and people can do that and then create new nuclear weapons. So my invitation is here to take seriously knowledge, and to take seriously the investment in understanding, especially related to plutonium, to try to solve technically the problem. I know that Professor SACHS is not only at Columbia University, but in the US has this technical network that I think it's a super interesting construction, because a lot of these problems have very serious scientific and technical difficulties. We cannot just accept the moral argument. We need to go deeper into the knowledge discipline of understanding what does it mean to undo a nuclear weapon, what does it mean to really disarm, what does it mean to take the uranium, dilute the uranium, create the electricity, and make sure that the uranium cannot be used for another human bomb, for another nuclear bomb anymore. We need to do the same for plutonium. And we need to do the same, making sure that all the religious groups continue that work, that fundamental discipline of keeping themselves on the side of dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for really that call to action and linking so beautifully the efforts, the past with the present and the future, and the efforts in ensuring peace with efforts on nuclear disarmament. They're very much linked. Now we will hear from IKEDA, who is the UN representative of SOKA GAKKAI International, a Buddhist community-based organization which promotes peace, culture, and education. Anna is a graduate of SOKA University of America and holds a master's degree from the University of Denver in International Human Rights. Her work centers around disarmament, both nuclear abolition as well as stopping killer robots. And just to speak on a personal note, for me personally, Anna has really been one of the brightest lights in the nuclear disarmament movement. So welcome, Anna. Please, you may begin your remarks.
Well, thank you so much, Ivana, for the kind introduction, and also thank you to Nuclear Age Peace Foundation for convening this discussion and inviting my organization, SOKA GAKKAI International, to be part of it. I'd like to first echo Ivana that it's actually very timely that we're having this conversation as we mourn the recent passing of Pope Francis, who was truly a champion of peace and nuclear abolition, and received the exciting news of the election of the new Pope. So as mentioned, I'm Anna IKEDA, and I'm a representative to the UN for disarmament of SOKA GAKKAI International, SGI. At SGI, we engage in various issues, including nuclear disarmament at the UN and at grassroots levels, based on our Buddhist principles of the utmost respect for dignity of life and deep conviction in human capacity to transform our realities, which I'll explain further later. And our engagement in nuclear disarmament originates from the 1957 anti-nuclear declaration made by the second president of the SOKA GAKKAI, Josei Toda. And in this declaration, Toda condemned nuclear weapons which threaten humanity's right to live as an embodiment of the bleakest aspects of the human heart. So based on my organization's long-standing commitment, today I'd like to offer some insights that may shed some light on how to advance nuclear disarmament, a goal clearly articulated in Article 6 of the NPT, and move toward a more peaceful world from a Buddhist perspective. But before I go further, I do want to note that within Buddhism, I'm sure all of you know, there are many different traditions and schools of thought, and I can only speak for my own Buddhist faith tradition as practiced by the SOKA GAKKAI, which is based on the teachings of Nichiren Daishonin, a 13th century Japanese monk, as well as Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings of the Lotus Sutra. And one of the core tenets of our Buddhist practice is that each person possesses within themselves what we call Buddha nature or Buddhahood. And our goal is to reveal that inner potential. So this means that we all have the innate capacity to transform even the most negative situations into something positive and experience happiness no matter what our circumstances. The key aspect of this belief is the process of inner transformation, what we call human evolution in the SOKA GAKKAI. In other words, every change from our personal relations to transforming our society ultimately starts with changing ourselves, which is sometimes a hard pill to swallow, right? And I don't have time to get into details about this concept, nor is this the right forum. I would just say that this is the most empowering concept. So how does this relate to nuclear disarmament, you might ask? Well, in recent years, SGI has been urging the nuclear weapon states to adopt the policy of no first use, especially within the context of the NPT, in order to reduce the nuclear risks and open a path for nuclear disarmament. We believe that such a policy would significantly enhance the global security climate, and we were pleased that it is included in the current draft recommendation for the NPT review conference. In the statement to the 2022 NPT review conference, late SGI President Daisaku Ikeda stated, and I quote, "Until now, the prime focus of nuclear deterrence policy has been to dissuade adversaries from using nuclear weapons, a goal pursued by expanding nuclear arsenals. States should take a step back and turn the severe gaze they presently direct at the threat posed by other states toward the threat inherent in their own nuclear doctrines. I call on all states to earnestly focus on the contributions they each can make to the prevention of nuclear war and to dramatically reducing the risk of nuclear weapons use," unquote. At the UN forum like this, unfortunately, we often hear that while a world without nuclear weapons is our shared goal, the current global security climate is not conducive to advancing nuclear disarmament. Well, this means that we risk perpetually getting trapped in the current state of being at the brink of nuclear annihilation, precisely because each country is making other countries' actions and policies the determinants and conditions for their own. So our call for no first use is thus rooted in a Buddhist philosophy of self-empowerment, a call for all states to choose their own future for collective security. I would also say that the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW, was a prime example of such self-empowerment, where non-nuclear weapon states decided that they did not have to wait for nuclear weapon states to make progress toward nuclear disarmament. It is a reminder that we each have the power to make a difference. And also we find the most powerful example in the voices of Hibakusha and others from the affected communities. Despite their pain and trauma, they continue to awaken us to the inhumanity of nuclear weapons, yet never losing faith in humanity. We have the moral obligation to heed their voice. Additionally, it's important that as faith communities, we challenge the concept of nuclear deterrence as a security concern that threatens us all, rather than protect us. In an article published in the Boston Review last September, Professor Elaine Scarry of Harvard University listed the flaws of nuclear deterrence as explained by General Lee Butler. She wrote, quote, "Even before any missiles are launched or populations are slain, deterrence destroys the minds and souls of those who have to bandy about the word deterrence." Butler worries that the cavalier reference to killing millions of people must harm anyone speaking that way, unquote. I believe her comment is consistent with Pope Francis' assertion that the mere possession of nuclear weapons is immoral. In the Lotus Sutra, there is a story called Parable of the Three Carts and the Burning House. According to this parable, a wealthy man's house suddenly catches fire. However, his children who are inside remain unaware of the danger in which they are placed and show neither surprise nor fear. The man then finds ways to entice the children to come out of their own accord, thus enabling all to exit the burning house unharmed. We are in the burning house today. We have been for the last 80 years. However, the public still remains unaware of the present threat. And those countries that possess and depend on nuclear weapons also continue to underplay the dangers, just like the children in the parable. I believe it is the responsibility of faith communities, in particular, to help find a way out of the burning house, to avoid the collective planetary suicide, and save everyone, including those contributing to the current dangers. We must make this year, marking 80 years since the Trinity test, atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and founding of the United Nations, a year of action for nuclear disarmament. And Audrey, Jonathan, and I are part of the Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons, which is part of the United Religions Initiative, and we have been marking August 6th as Nuclear Prayer Day. So we invite everyone to take prayerful actions on and toward August 6th, and I'm happy to share more individually if you're interested. So to conclude, I'd like to quote a famous passage from the Russell-Einstein Manifesto, which was issued 7 years ago. "Remember your humanity and forget the rest. If you can do so, the way lies open to a new paradise. If you cannot, there lies before you the risk of universal death." I thank you so much.